All right. See, I have such a great group. They look after me. They watch after me. Got my back. All right. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to today's meetup. Everyone, thank you for joining us. ASVPM is a nonprofit organization, the founder of the SVPM Scrum Team program, and the sponsor of this meetup event. The SVPM Scrum Team program is run by volunteer professionals as a platform to learn and to experience Scrum fundamentals and other agile frameworks and practices through the process of immersion. The SVPM vision is to continuously build the next generation of agile practitioners and develop empirical leadership within our global society. This whole program is run by volunteers from SVPM, and so I would like to hand out and give credit to them for this event. Our guest speaker today is Larry Apke. Larry has been an Agile coach for 12 years plus. He specialized in guiding organizations through Agile adoption for enhanced value and customer satisfaction. Formerly, he was a principal Agile coach at T-Mobile. He spearheaded Agile transformations. One of his highlights was helping T-Mobile with the largest and fastest transition from project scope to project capacity funding. And as a founder of, he's also a founder of the Job Hackers. Larry offered free Agile training to underserved groups. He provided over 6 million of free training to over 4,000 people in over 50 countries. He's authored 3 Agile books and is a respected Agile community speaker and leader. Today's meetup is about, the title of today is Product Management versus Project Management. So welcome, Larry, and thanks. Take it away.
Thank you, Donald. I appreciate it. As I was saying before, as people come in here, it's great to see so many faces of people that I have met through my work in the Agile community, folks who have taken my class or folks that I've met at PMI groups and other functions. My goal today is to hopefully provide you with some value and present some ideas that I think will be both interesting and maybe get you to think about the world a little bit differently. Some of you may already be there, and I'm just preaching to the choir, but either way. I consider it one of the good fortunes of my life to be able to give these talks from time to time, and the class that I was able to present was tremendous. Job Hackers still goes on, so if you're not familiar with them, I urge you to look into it. I stepped down from running the Job Hackers and teaching in May of last year because we were, at the time, I was involved in a large transformation at T-Mobile, and it was getting too much to do my day job and family, because my son just turned 18. We just took him to college last week, so everybody's moving in my family now, including us. So it was just too much, but they're still going strong. There's some good people there, maybe some of them here today. I want to put a plug in for them. These days, I was let go from T-Mobile. I'm sure some of you have felt the pain. That's why Job Hackers was formed, to help people who are looking for work get some education and find work. And we provided a whole bunch of group help, people getting together and creating a community. That's what the Job Hackers is, of people helping people. But I just recently got a job. So if you're all looking for work, you just got to keep looking, because it will happen. It took a while for me, and it may take a while for you, but just don't lose heart and just keep plugging. What I'm doing these days is a little bit different than what I've done in the past as an Agile coach. I was talking with Donald and the volunteers before this started. I'm now a product manager, or you could call a product owner at American Express. I started 5 weeks ago, so brand new. I'm loving it so far. And the biggest problem I have is to remind myself I'm a product manager now and not an agile coach, because I keep wanting to try to change how they do business, but that's not my primary job. But it is different because I've trained, as he said, 4,000 people through over 4,000 people through the job hackers. I've also given that training internally to the companies I've worked for and with over the years. So I've probably trained, thousands of product owners. But it was rare in my career that I actually got to do the job. So we're going to find out if I can eat my own dog food and do the things that I told other folks they should be doing or might want to do all those years. Anyway, so that's the setup, just so you know where I'm coming from. And I appreciate it. I won't talk more about Amex because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know what I can and cannot say other than I'm having a good time, and I appreciate them giving me time to meet with you and present with you today. I want to tell you a story. I like telling stories. I think people like stories. So I want to tell you a story behind a concept called the PPMO. And if you hadn't heard that concept before, that's because I've done a bad job of giving it any legs whatsoever. I thought it would be something that would catch on, and obviously it has not. Unless you've spoken with me and you've heard this before, you probably don't hear about this concept out in the wild. I was in my first official agile coaching role years ago for a financial services firm in San Antonio, Texas. I was actually working in I think it's the second largest office building in the United States. It was 1 mile from end to end. I'm not going to say the name, but if you're familiar with San Antonio and financial services, you know who it is. Um, and I've always liked talking. You probably gathered that already, and if you've taken my class, you know that. But they gave me an opportunity to speak to the San Antonio PMI group, and I learned a lesson in communication that day. Now, it doesn't mean I'm better at communicating. It's just I learned a lesson. I learned it the hard way because I said something in a way that I shouldn't have. Right. There was nothing wrong with what I was saying. It's just I presented it in an order which didn't really help me too much, because we got to a point, I forget what it was the presentation was about, but somebody asked me, and I want to take some questions afterwards because you probably have a bunch of different questions about Agile and Scrum and organizational change, et cetera. They asked me, if you could do anything, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? Right, to make the place you're working at now more agile, or other places that you've worked at more agile. And this is where I've made my mistake, because the very first thing out of my mouth is I would get rid of the PMO. Now you can imagine this is the PMI, and I would assume that everybody in the audience, this was back in person, was probably part of a PMO. So that's not good messaging, folks. So I don't know if they heard the rest of my story, but if they had, rotten food, they would have probably thrown it at me. You should have seen their faces, very much like this AI generated image that I've included here. After that, for those of you, for those folks in the crowd that actually paid attention, I wanted to give them more, not less. I didn't want to take their jobs away. I wanted to give them more. I wanted to give them more responsibility, 25% more, depending on how you do the math. What I said is I would get rid of the PMO. I would replace it with what I call a PPMO. And they said, what's a PPMO? And that is a product and project management office. So something more. And a lot of people look at me sometimes like I'm crazy when I say that. Why would you do something like that? And this is the real crux of the story, is I am thoroughly convinced now, probably more so than I was then, that how we build products, and I'm going to speak specifically about software development products because that's been my history. I've been in software development 30 plus years. How we build software products is fundamentally different than how we do projects. And I don't know from the behavior I see from people that they know that. They may know that, but their behavior doesn't show to me that it's actually sunk in, because we have a tendency everywhere I've been, by the way. So either I go to the most screwed up places in the world, this is prevalent everywhere, where we treat our products like projects. And that's not a good thing because there's a lot of bad things that can happen. But let me give you, I got a slide here about some of the differences. For those of you who might still be saying, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, because the words product and project sound so much alike, it's sometimes I confuse them myself, right? So I put this little grid together, and I'll be sharing this, and it's recorded and everything if you want to, refer to it later. But I took some aspects of projects and products, and I wanted to compare and contrast the two. So a project has a specific objective, and it usually has a specific time frame. You can think of a project that has a recognizable beginning. Usually starts with a kickoff, right? Y'all done that? Um, I have to say, I've never been fond of kickoffs. We have these kickoffs, and we have balloons and streamers and clowns and music and beer or whatever, and we're having a great time kicking off a project. I don't care about kicking off a project. I care about delivering a project. I care about delivering value. So we should be celebrating the end of a project much more than we celebrate the beginning. But by the time we get to the end of most projects, we're so darn tired, we just go our separate ways. But it's something that can be done in a specific time frame. It has a defined beginning, middle, and end. Whereas a product does not have that. A product is like they say in the Bible, I think if I remember correctly, the poor. It is always with us. You rarely get rid of a product. There is no end to a product. You're going to have customers. I have this wonderful story where I was brought in as a software development director to sunset a product way back early in my career. And that product was meant to be sunsetted on a 6-month schedule. I was sunsetted before the product was. Right? The product lived on because it had customers and it had paying customers, and we got bought out by a company who acquired that product, and they just kept selling it. Right? So the things that you do for a short term are different than the things you do for a long term. And I've got an analogy for that that you probably already read in the intro. The different focus of what do I pay attention to is different from a project and a product. And this is critical because the focus in the project is what I sometimes refer to, and it's probably not the best word, but bright, shiny objects, right? There are things that our business recognizes they want these things done. Okay, great. We focus on getting those things done. But what we don't focus is on the overall success of the product, the long-term success of the product. And that is much to the detriment of projects or products. See, I do it all the time too. The timeline is different. Timeline is temporary in projects. It's ongoing in products. You never know when it's going to end. You just don't. I mean, in some cases you do, like Windows says, we're not going to support Windows 10 anymore. Great, but it doesn't mean that you don't have, millions and millions of people are still using it. You just decided not to support them. The product lives on. The project is completed when the goals of the project are met. You don't have the same thing. You have continuous outcomes in product. In a software product, I'm continuously making changes to that product, hopefully enhancements to that product. And they happen throughout the life cycle. Again, we've got to think long-term life cycle. By the way, for those of you who work with software, I have my thinking on products and backlogs is this, which sometimes people find radical, but I don't. When you take a product lens, anything you do to that product is an enhancement. If I add a new feature, it's an enhancement. If I make the architecture more stable, sometimes referred to as technical debt, and I mitigate technical debt, that is an enhancement of the product, right? You don't do that in a project because you're just getting the bright, shiny objects and the features. If I fix a defect, it is enhancing the product. If I build quality into my product and take the time to do things like behavior-driven, test-driven development, which I'm a big proponent of, most of you know that if you've been around me, that's enhancing your product. These are the things that you wouldn't necessarily do in project management because you're not, well, I don't want to give away the ending. The metrics are different. What you measure is different. And that's important as well. So all of these things is again, back to a simple fundamental difference between projects and products. And if you treat a project like a product, which I've never seen, you're probably going to have a bad time. And if you treat a product like a project, you're going to have a bad time. That I have seen. And I've seen it time and time again. So there's an analogy that I talk about in my class that some might remember. There was a guy he was named William Creech. He was a general and worked with the Navy. He was in charge of the maintenance of the naval aviation fleet. And when he was first put in charge of that naval aviation fleet, he went on the deck and he was talking to the sailors. And they had a bad maintenance record. And he went up to one of the sailors, and the sailor said something very cryptic to him. He said, "Why do we have problems with maintenance?" And the sailor said, "No one washes a rental car." And that made Creech kind of step back and say, "What the heck is this guy talking about?" What he's referring to is, I don't know what they do on planes, but let's just say they have to change the oil. My job is to change the oil on the plane, right? I'm not in charge of the plane. I'm not responsible for the plane. That's the difference between a rental car and the reason that you don't wash it because you don't own it. So a project to me has a lot of the facets of being a rental car. You're going in and making some changes to a product, but you're not there for the long term. You're just in there, you swoop in, you do your job, and then you swoop back out. And nobody washes a rental car. So what happens is you don't do the maintenance that's necessary. So why does this really matter? Well, here's what happens, because again, I've seen it pretty much every place I've been. You're going to have poorer quality because you're not going to be, your metrics aren't necessarily going to be quality in a project. And if push comes to shove, which it always does, because we don't have unlimited time and resources, you're going to cut corners in order to deliver those features, right? Your speed to market is slower than when you do project management versus product management, because most project management, and you have to forgive me if I oversimplify things. I don't mean to, but most projects are run in a waterfall manner. Waterfall is very slow. It just is. You can argue whether it's better, but I don't think you can argue it's faster. Speed to market is very important. One of the things that a product owner should know that a project manager doesn't know is something called cost of delay. If it takes me more time to deliver this feature, what is it costing me every day I don't deliver? This is one of the most important factors when you're determining the work that you should do. You should always do those things with the highest cost of delay first, if you can. Actually, you want to do the things with the highest cost of delay and the lowest effort, or sometimes I refer to it as value and effort. In my third book, it's called Apke's Golden Rule of Agile. I talk about how you can deliver the most value in the shortest amount of time, because the Golden Rule of Agile, to me, which distills all of Agile into one simple phrase, not perfectly, but good enough, is here's the golden rule. We deliver the optimal value to our customers in the shortest time possible. Waterfall just doesn't do it. There's a high cost of delay. No feedback loops, a whole bunch of stuff that I teach in class. It doesn't allow for much change. I think most of you are probably familiar with and really don't like something called a change review board. Are you familiar with that? Raise your hand. You're familiar with change review board, right? We have a change review board because here's what happened. We got a project and that project was funded. And the scope of the project was determined at the beginning. But in the complex world, in the VUCA world, I sometimes refer to that if you haven't heard that, the world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In that world, you cannot foresee the future in the complex world. So you're always going to start doing some work and you're going to find other work. And the market is complex. So the market is going to change and you're going to want to be able to pivot. You can't pivot. What you have to do in a project is you have to go to a change review board and you have to say, I'm going to add this scope. You need to give me more money or you need to cut scope, right? And usually it's neither. Usually they say, we're just going to add this. We're not going to give you any more money, right? And that's where the corner cutting comes in. So it's not agile in the sense of agility is essential for having a market fit. And a product is something where you consider market fit, and a project is not something you consider market fit for the most part. It doesn't really ensure that the most value is delivered to the customer in the shortest time possible. So it goes against Apke's golden rule of agile, because you don't deliver necessarily the most valuable things. You deliver what was funded. And they tend to fund things in a large batch because it's so burdensome to get a project approved. And it takes so long to get a project approved, you tend to shove everything but the kitchen sink in there. And sometimes you shove the kitchen sink in there and you want to get it all funded. But the problem when you have a large batch is you have an asymmetry of value of all the items you could do with your product. All the enhancements. Remember I said everything you do is an enhancement to a software product. All those enhancements have an asymmetry of value. And the key in product ownership and product management is to deliver the most value in the shortest time possible. But if I've created a big batch where I've considered the value of the batch, but not the value of the things in the batch, there's no way I can adhere to delivering the most value in the shortest amount of time. And it's not necessarily responsive to customers' needs, because again, most projects in my mind, and again, an oversimplification, are just bright, shiny objects. They're new features on an existing product. That is not necessarily responsive to a customer's needs. A customer wants, I'm in financial services. I spent a lot of time doing agile coaching in financial services. You know what the customer wants? You all know, because you're the customer. You want somebody not to steal your personal information, which seems to happen every other day. And you want to know why it happens? I'm going to give you my hypothesis. Because the people who are building the software treat it like projects. They're so busy chasing new features in business that they leave holes and gaps in their software. They create technical debt in their software. And it's not responsive to the customer's needs to actually deliver all the features we try to deliver in a project setting. Because Microsoft did a study, and in that study you might be familiar with, they asked about features. How often do you use these features? And they found out in their list that 80% of all features are rarely, seldom, or never used. But they were funded and created anyway. Why were they funded? Why were they created? Because they were part of project management and not product management. And it has to do with incentives, right? Because if let's say I want my bonus because I got my eye on a boat, I want to get a new boat. You know what the two best days in a boat owner's life are, right? The day you buy it and the day you sell it. I want to buy a boat. I need my bonus to do it. What am I incentivized to do in project management? I'm incentivized to create the features. Am I incentivized to create a good product? Am I incentivized to get rid of technical debt? Am I incentivized to do the best practices of software development, like pair programming, test-driven development, behavior-driven development? No. And these incentives mean a lot. They do. And I've been doing this for a very long time at many, many different organizations. And I can tell you this. I like to think of myself as a systems thinker, and I want you to be a systems thinker with me. My contention is this: the system you are in is doing exactly what the system was built to do. Okay, I want that to sink in. The system that you're in is doing exactly what that system was built to do. Now, the problem with most systems is people don't know their systems, they don't know they own systems, and they build them haphazardly. But they will do what they're built to do. And the biggest thing in systems thinking when it comes to business, in the area we're talking about here, are incentives, generally financial incentives. Because I also have another phrase. You've heard what gets incentivized gets done, right? You probably all heard that one. I added another step to it because I think it's more like this. It's more accurate if you say what gets incentivized gets focused upon. And those things that get focused upon tend to get done. So if you give me bad incentives, i.e. project management type incentives, when I am building a product, I will follow those incentives, right? I don't know if any of you work for Wells Fargo. If you do, I apologize. There's great people work at Wells Fargo, but y'all been in trouble recently. And some of you are familiar with that, right? Billions of dollars of fines were paid. They didn't admit any wrongdoing, so I'm not the court of law here. But what they did is they incentivized people to open up multiple accounts on other people, on their customers. I think you're familiar with this. And because of those really, really high incentives, guess what? People started opening accounts without the customers knowing about it, right? This is bad behavior. Now, I know a lot of people at Wells Fargo. One of my best friends works at Wells Fargo. They are good people. So I have this other saying that I think is at least partially true. Bad incentives will turn a good person bad before good incentives will turn a bad person good. They weren't bad people. They had bad incentives, right? And so that's a lot of the problem when you run into a situation where you're treating a product like a project, which again is a great, and the key there comes back down to almost all the time, not always, but almost all the time, comes down to money. It comes down to how do we fund things? If we fund things as a project, you will get project behavior because that's what you need to do. And that's not best for products. As I said, it takes a long time to get the funding. You have to do large batches. You're going to do waterfall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the problems and more that I talked about. You could create technical debt, et cetera, because you've been incentivized to do it. So it's very hard for me as an agile coach to get the results that I want in an environment that is, a product, software development product organization that's being treated like a project organization. It's very hard because the incentives keep pulling people back. That's what incentives do. And the system is doing what it was designed to do because somebody, designed the incentives. And I'm not saying they're bad people at all. They're fine people. But they have what I believe is a mistaken view, an inaccurate view of the world. They see everything. They've been trained as a project manager, which is a fine training. I'm not coming down on that either, because we do have projects in the world and you guys do a good job with the projects. I am certain of that. But you're going to have a project management lens. You're going to create a PPMO. You're going to have a project management office. And there you're going to help contribute to the poor incentives, or what I would consider suboptimal incentives. I don't like to say good, bad, right, wrong. I like to say optimal or suboptimal. These are suboptimal incentives for the reasons that I outlined. If you do a product funding, you get all kinds of virtuous incentives built in. And if you have some questions about it, I certainly can talk more about it. That was something that Donald referred to in my opening. And I think I have Carl. Carl is in the car and he's from T-Mobile. So I don't know if he wants to chime in on this, where they are today, because I left T-Mobile about a year ago in a layoff. What we were trying to accomplish is, and I hope we did, was they spend $1 billion plus on IT. And what we wanted to accomplish, and the first thing that I wanted to accomplish personally, because I know this to be something that's impactful, right? You fix the incentives, you're going to get a better result. Is we attempted to move, and I thought we did move. It might have moved back, but in 7 months, we took all the funding that was done by project and we changed it to product for over $1 billion, which makes it the largest and fastest of its kind. Again, I don't know if it's stuck. The reason that was so important to me and the reason that I pushed for it, and I was so fortunate that I ran into some wonderful people in the accounting and finance office who understood my argument and helped make this something that we strove for, and I think accomplished to a certain degree. And again, I don't know if it's still in place. That makes a difference. If you start building different incentives in your system, you start to build a better system. And it's an easier system, by the way, because project management, I have to take scope of any changes I want to make, and I got to go to a committee and I got to go get money because they have the purse strings. In a product organization, you ask yourself a completely different question. This is why we call it product and capacity funding, is you ask yourself, what do I wish to invest in this product next year? And that investment will determine your capacity. So if I want to invest $2 million in product X, I know that $2 million will buy me one Scrum team of 8 people for a year. I have funded that capacity. I have funded that team for the entire year. And what I tell business is, you're going to love me for this if we can do it, if we can pull this off, because everything you want to do is funded now. You don't have to go for funding. It's been funded. The capacity is there. The only difference is, if your thing is the most important thing, it will get done. If it has the highest value and the lowest effort, it will probably get done. But if your thing that you bring to my backlog, to my product backlog, not project backlog, that's another problem, but to my product backlog, if it is worthy, I'm going to do it. And if not, it's going to fall below the line because I have a fixed capacity based on how much I choose to invest. Much easier from a financial standpoint. I don't have to track all these project numbers and all this other financial shenanigans. I just identify my products, determine what I want to invest in those products, and then quarterly I might review the spend, ask myself the question, is this capacity delivering the value I want? Do I want to shift dollars over to another product to give it more capacity and take from another product, which is, maybe end of life, and I don't want to spend as much changing it because it's stable and I don't need to make a lot of changes, right? So to me, this is it, right? When I look back at my Agile career, which is pretty much over, folks, I'm no longer an Agile coach. My goal is to retire from Amex as a product manager, okay? I don't have aspirations of changing a large organization. But if I did, the very first thing I would look at is I would look at the funding. And I would look at the systems that were built around the funding. Anyway, so that's my story. I figured it'd take about 35, 40 minutes, so that's good. I'm about right on time. And I expected that we would have some questions. But before we get to that, I got a question for one of you, because Carl came off of his car. You're out of the car now. And you drove to San Francisco, it looks like. Can we unmute Carl for 1 second?
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, so my question, I usually don't talk too much about past places, but I think it was important to talk about the thing that we tried to do, and I thought we did do before I left. Is that still continuing, Carl, or do you know? Because you were let go about the same time as me, though, or no?
I did. I got ripped, and I can't say too much because I was ripped. All of that. The one thing I did notice, though, that for cross-functional teams, projects are usually short-lived, and the teams move from project to project. Yeah. For cross-functional teams, it's important for the team member to be there at least a quarter, and the reason why is you build trust.
Right.
And once you work with somebody, you build trust, and that way. So I didn't see it in your slide there, but it would be. I would add another bullet point for being there at least a quarter.
I think it's a great bullet point. So if you're not familiar with what Carl's talking about, when I fund a team, what I really want to fund a team is I want to fund a team that can make all the changes that are necessary for that product. Meaning it becomes a cross-functional team. Meaning I have QA and development, and I might have database and front end and back end, and whoever it takes to create that product from beginning to end. The other thing that I've come across, that I've started to say, because I think people have trouble sometimes with the word product, is customer experience, right? In software, generally, if you're on the web or something like that, you're providing a customer experience. That's your product, really. It's expressed in code, but it's your product. So you would have everybody on that team that is necessary for that customer experience, and they would be funded. In a project way, what you do is your funding is for a particular scope. So you bring people together on a short basis. I think I alluded to it, but Carl was more direct about it. You bring people, you bring the work to the people, or bring the people to the work, sorry. And they you might have, especially if you're trying to do Scrum, I've seen this happen, by the way, where you have somebody who's a developer who's on 4 daily stand-ups. You know why? Because there are 4 different teams. You know why? Because they're doing 4 different projects. That's not what Agile was about. It's not what Scrum was about. What we talk about in Agile is we talk about product owner. And that is one of the most misused titles out there. Just below Agile Coach. I think Agile Coach is the most misused title in software development these days. But it's misused because most of these people don't own their product. Because if they owned their product, they would have P&L responsibility, meaning I've got a budget, and they would comprise their team. And that team would be built around that product. That product would have a single backlog full of everything that could be done. Again, Larry's term, they're all enhancements. And then they would do the work based on what was the most, highest value for shortest amount of effort. And they would sequence the backlog. This is what my book's about. They would sequence the backlog. I don't like the word priority. I like the word sequence, meaning if you got 10 things, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you could only do one thing before you die, it's number 1. If you can only do 2 things before you die, it's number 1, then number 2. I want that sequence. But the product owner owns that backlog. The product owner owns the product. The product owner owns the P&L, and the product owner owns the sequence of the work. Completely different from project, because a project manager only owns the project. They might have to work with literally dozens of teams to make something happen. And that is a terrible way to build a product, and it is slow as molasses. Because what happens is, it's pretty easy to visualize. I wish I had a slide. But if you let's say you have 7 different teams that you need to build something, which is not unusual because we tend to what I call hyper specialize, especially in software development. So I've got a team that works only on front end. It's a design team. I got a team that works only on back end. I got a team that works only on software delivery and DevOps. Even if we're doing that, I got another quality team that's a separate team. I've got a separate database team. I got a separate this, that, and the other. And what happens is you've got a chain of 7 different silos that have to work together and coordinate together. And that is very slow, because if I'm doing 2-week sprints, what will happen is invariably that they're not going to schedule their work at the same time, because I can't trust that you in front of me are going to finish. So I don't schedule your work until you're done, and on and on and on. So if I have 7 different silos that the work has to go through, let's do some math here, folks. 7 times 2 is what? 14. How many 14 weeks is what? It's a quarter, right? And this is, I don't know if anybody's safest out there. I'm not a safest. And again, I'm not looking for a job, and I probably won't be a coach again. So I'm going to be brutally honest. SAFE is nothing more than 3-month waterfall. It allows you to keep the silos and says, just manage these dependencies and everything will be all right. But you can't just manage these dependencies. If I had 10 teams that I needed, I'm going to go beyond a quarter. And I go to companies that are doing SAFe, and they do PI planning, which is nothing more than waterfall planning, and they deliver very few things that they plan in the quarter. Why is that true? Because they're so dependent, and SAFe wants us just to get in a room and manage these dependencies. And if anything changes, what do? Right? So there's nothing agile about locking yourself into a 3-month plan because you've created a system of dependencies. The key, and the reason that you should get rid of SAFe, that's my opinion, and that was one of the first things I did at T-Mobile too, was try to influence that, which they did, maybe back there. Now I don't know. Is create cross-functional teams, what Carl was saying. If I have 7 different specialties, take one from this specialty, one from this specialty, one from this specialty, et cetera, put those 7 people together on one team. How long does it take me now? My cycle time is 2 weeks. So I go from 14 weeks to 2-week cycle time. So the cost, I'm a bottom line guy, right? I don't want to do it because it's the right thing to do, though I think it's the right thing to do. I don't want to do it because it makes people happier, but if you do it right, it makes people happier. I don't do it because it engages employees, but if you do it right, it engages the employees. I do it because it makes perfect financial sense that if I can deliver something in 2 weeks versus 14 weeks, I'm going to have a better product. I'm going to make more money. Chances are, right? But it depends who your competition is too. When I used to work at the banks, I say, well, you don't really need to be agile because your competition isn't agile. What you need to be is not the slowest gazelle on the plane, right? The slowest gazelle is going to get eaten because all financial services companies are trying to be agile, and they have been for years. And the results are, I would say, at best mixed. And I think that the root of that is the incentives, the financial incentives, and treating products like projects. I don't have any strong opinions on anything. It's like that what is it, the meme that they say where the guy's sitting down, change my mind. Project management and project management funding is the death of products. I'm sure we got some questions. There's a whole bunch of chat going on there. I would assume that we have something.
Yeah, we do. We do have a couple of questions. One, do the members who wrote the questions want to ask? One was from Karen.
Yeah, Karen.
She wants to know if
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute.
Yeah. Karen, how you doing? First time caller, long time listener. No,
Yeah, guess who? I'm a graduate of Agile MBA Job Hackers.
Hey.
So, it just seems so obvious why, because loyalty, customer loyalty and confidence in products is so essential in financial organizations. Why do they not focus? Why is that not their value? I mean, they see horror stories all around. So why doesn't that, wake them up? A big slap in the face,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes I'm like this lonely guy, old man shouting at clouds or something. I would say that the root of the problem is this, and I'm not saying bad people. I'm never saying they're bad people, but
Of course not.
the C-level executives, the ones who make the decisions on the incentives and the ones who own the system, one, don't realize they own the system. Two, they don't pay much attention to incentives. I don't know why, right? Because this is a big part of your P&L, a big part of whether you're successful. They just don't know it. They are completely oblivious to it. But I've always been in the contention. This is the reason behind the Agile MBA. At T-Mobile, I taught that we called it Agile Mindset because we wanted to brand it differently. It is about the mindset. And I have Agile coaches who say to me, "You're full of crap. It's not about mindset." And I say, "No, it's not about mindset for you because you have it already, right? A fish don't know it's wet. You're already there. but it is
Mhm.
mindset for all the other people because they've never looked at the world this way. So I gave a talk, I think it was maybe this group some time ago, about the three things that have to happen in order for us to be successful with the transformation, the agile transformation or others, is we have to see the world differently first. We have to think about the world differently second because of what we see, and then we have to act differently based on what we see and think. And they're all mixed up together because you can try to do things differently and it may change the way that you see and think. But the vast majority, if not all of the agile transformations I've been a part of or I've seen or I've talked to people, they don't pay attention to it's the way we view the world differently. If you're an agile person, you have a lens on the world that other people do not. And the coaches who tell me I'm wrong have the curse of knowledge. It's a bias. It's one of our many 700 human biases called curse of knowledge.
So the C-suite, they are responsible for, the stock price.
Yep.
And so, they're in that they are in that awkward position. But, I just read an article about NVIDIA, how people work 7 hours a day up until 2 a.m. And I said, I immediately lost any, respect for the guy who's, running that company. And then the next day I see how the stock falls.
Yeah.
So it's just,
I don't think that people get in those positions because they're necessarily good. I'm going to talk about software product development. That's my thing. They don't get in those positions because they're good at software product development. They get in those positions because they're good at playing politics. They're also good at short-sighted, what I consider short-sighted goals. And that is part of the system. Again, systems thinker. If I'm a public company, what am I concerned about? I'm concerned about next quarter. What does that force me to do? That forces me to cut corners on all kinds of things. And one of the main things that we've seen over the last 2 years is I'm going to shed employees to make me look better. Because executives these days, C-level executives, are not incentivized by salary. The vast majority of their income comes from stock. So they're going to do whatever it takes to keep that stock price up, and you don't count. Trust me, you're a number to them. And I'm going to turn around. If I need to say 10,000 people are going to be cut next quarter for me to get more value of my stock, what do you think I'm going to say? And what do you think I'm going to do? So, yeah.
well, I'm sure Peter Senge would, jump up and say, look what's happening to NVIDIA. It's a downward spiral.
It could be. I mean, I don't think they have anywhere to go but down. I think the stock price is pretty high. I think they probably don't have a lot of room because everybody's expecting so much from them. I think, I'm not going to short sell them because I don't want to bet the farm on it because you can lose a lot of money. But I think there's going to be probably a good deal of people who are going to make money on short sell. And I want to get, thank you for the questions. I know we got a few others and I got about 10 minutes. I could stay a little extra, but I want to get to some other questions.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, for asking that. So, Larry, we do have a couple of more questions. One is from Suruchi. She wants to know, can you elaborate the difference between product owner and product manager?
So Larry, thank you so much for going over with the project manager and product owner differences. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and examples. I love the analogies. Now, in some organizations, I observed that product owner is there and product manager is also there.
Mm-hmm.
From Scrum Master standpoint, I wanted to know the segregation of duties, their accountabilities, and how they make impact to the overall product delivery. Do we need both? All those things.
Well, I'm not, here's the funny thing, and it is my official title now, which is product manager. I've never liked the title product manager. I don't like necessarily the function product manager. I'm not going to say whether they're essential or not. I don't know. It depends what you mean by product manager. What I can say is, if you want to be optimal, you want product owners. Because again, a product manager is just taking some scope. They have an area of expertise, perhaps, and they're helping the team understand what it is. But again, they're in a chained highly dependent system. They're only working with one part of the chain. If I'm a product owner, I'm responsible for the whole product. I'm responsible for the whole customer experience from end to end. So that to me is the difference. Just to give you an example, because I mean, I don't want to talk too much about my current job, but what I do is I will become, because I'm not there yet, an expert on enterprise identity. That's my job, but I don't own the experience of logging in yet. That's the difference between a product manager and a product owner to me.
Got it. Got it. That's a great analogy. And then do you think that both these accountabilities are required? Or do you have any examples? Like what kind of products may need both the accountabilities or just one is enough? Or can product manager manage both? Because product owner is more closely accountable for backlog management, all those things, refinement, talking with stakeholders. Do you think that product manager can actually perform all those things?
I don't. The easy answer is I don't know. I can speak.
Okay.
I can speak to the product ownership.
Okay.
What you're really asking, I think, is where do the ideas come from?
Yes.
And you may need some people that you call product manager. I don't care what you call them, a SME, who knows the product, who's might be paying attention and working closely with the product owner, understand what needs to be done and the criticality of the work, et cetera. But the product owner owns it. To me, the product owner owns two things primarily. They own the backlog. They are primarily responsible for that backlog and whatever gets built because they get to decide what's on it. The second thing they're responsible for is the sequence of the backlog. Basically, in what order are we doing these things that sit on my backlog? That's a powerful concept too. When it was Karen, I think it's Karen was talking about why did the C-level not pay attention or leadership pay attention to this project versus product thing. I don't hear any agile coaches talking about sequence. I feel like I'm the only one who does. But I think it is critical because as I point out in my book, if you sequence your backlog that way, you can start to see value delivered over time. You can start to see capacity as things move through the system over time, and sometimes referred to as velocity. And I can start to predict what the future might look like because all I have to do is I have to say I deliver X number of story points or X number of stories per time period, per sprint, per month, whatever. And I use that capacity as a yardstick on everything. So if I have 20 items in my backlog, I can finish 5, every week, say, and I've got them ranked 1 to 20 in a sequential order. I'm going to do 5 in the first week. I'm going to do 6 through 10 in the second week. You get what I'm saying?
Got it. Absolutely.
So I think I would love to see people talk about PPMO, which I think invented. I'd love to see people talk about sequence, which if I didn't invent, I'm about the only one out there as a voice in the wilderness talking about it. That's why I had to write the book. I just felt like I had to get it out of my system. And not because I'm going to make money off of it, not because anybody's going to read it, but I had to get it out of my system because I like you, this makes no sense to me. The thing that I would recommend is if something doesn't make sense to you, put your systems thinking cap on, look at the incentives, and then it will start to make sense. People do weird things because they're incentivized to do weird things. Other questions? Sorry, I talk so much, I'll never get to all the questions.
Right. What I wanted to do, Larry, is I sent a note in chat. Let's take one more comment or question from Matt, and then maybe one from the chat, and then we can conclude. I have some announcements to make and closing comments. So let's do that.
Okay.
Matt?
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it. So my question is about what younger professionals interested in either product or project management should kind of make of the information you shared with us, and what kind of roles we should roles we should target or competency we should develop as we're trying to find our way in industry now. Yeah, I'll keep it kind of simple because for me, I'm actually kind of a new member of my local chapter of PMI, but currently working in I'm a supply chain grad, but I'm currently working in a bit of a different industry. But I'll since we're on time, I'll keep it to that.
Sure. I've got a couple. I've got a couple thoughts, and first I want to say the PMI groups are one of the most welcoming places that you can find, and there's going to be a lot of people if you reach out to them who are more than willing to help you. So do that. You know, do the networking, show up to these things, get to know some people, and let them help you, and mentor you. The second thing I would have normally said you would do what I have done, which is know something about software again, software development. If you know something about software development, so play around with actually writing some code so you can get some empathy with the people doing the work. And then you would go through probably the Scrum Master route. Excuse me, I gotta get water. You would go through the Scrum Master route if you're considered if you're interested in the things that I'm talking about, which I think are process kind of, I put them in quotes, process procedural type of things. How the product is built, right? As opposed to what you're building. Go through the Scrum Master route. Maybe you can become an Agile coach. I think the world is replete with Agile coaches. We probably don't need any more. We need to get rid of some of the ones who are bad. There's a lot of bad ones out there. They're just not good, right? They don't know what good Agile coaches know, but they're trying to sell themselves as coaches. The second thing is if you care more about the product, which most people do, by the way, then you want to go through product ownership and product management. I care about process. It's really funny that I'm getting an opportunity to care about product because I never had that opportunity before. But I used to mentor groups. I'm sorry for a long answer, but I used to mentor groups and they would make these wonderful software development products and they'd be all excited about their product. And only thing I'd ask them is, how often did you meet? Did you do Scrum? Process questions. So they got tired of me and I got tired of them. So I don't go anymore. I hope that helps. I would say take the job hacker MBA. I think it's free. I think you're going to learn a lot. If you don't want to take it, all of my materials when I left the job hackers, because it's my intellectual property, I put up on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, you type in Larry Apke, all my training is there. There's tons of stuff there for free. The second thing is, if you want to get in contact with me, I'm the only Larry Apke who's still alive. So I'm easy to find. You just Google me and you'll find all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. All right, we're at the end of the hour, and for respect for time, I have a hard stop. Let's take it there. And sorry for the folks who don't have, we didn't get to your questions in the chat, but like Larry said,
I
go
can
ahead.
stick around.
Okay.
I can
All right,
stick
we'll
around
stick around.
leave it open for a little bit.
Okay, we'll leave it open for a little bit, but let me make these few announcements and then we'll move on and to other questions in the chat then. Thank you very much, Larry. I just want to thank Larry, your knowledge and innovative insights to this particular topic, product management and project management, and helping us understand the differences. I want to be sure that in the chat we have posted some connections. Our Meetup page, go ahead and sign up and stay informed if you haven't. We have a website, and we also will be posting our next Meetup event. Recording of this call will also be available soon, within a week's time, on our website. So that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and continue with the questions, and then we'll see how far we go.
I won't be offended if you leave, if you got to go, but I'll stick around for those who want to stick around.
Please take the survey. We would like to hear from you about this meetup.
Oh, no. Before anybody goes, may I have your beautiful smile? I'm going to take a picture of you.
Yeah, we want to collect as
keep
many.
it. I want to keep it for longer time. May I have your beautiful smile, please? Beautiful, beautiful, large smile, because I need them. I need your smile because you took the time, shared your time with us. Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you so much. Stay around, and Larry is with us. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, continue. And questions on the chat?
I guess she dropped. Diane was a job hacker too. She's always been a lot of support to me. I wanted to say that, but she's gone. Okay, if there's other questions, you want to stick around, I'm happy to.
Well, let me just say that Diane's a good funder of our program too. So we know her very well. She's very near and dear to us.
Good. No, she's always been a lot of support for me. I appreciate her support.
Hey,
Okay.
Larry, I just want to expand on the product owner, product manager just for a second, because I've been both.
Yeah.
And it's to me, if it's a small one team, both roles are one person, right? Because they can handle it. But as you scale up, the scaled agile, you add more than one team. You know, they say like you have 3 product owners.
Mhm.
Well, you divvy out that role of product manager that each product owner was doing and make it a product manager role. And to me, the product owner is in charge of the backlog and attending the daily scrum,
Yeah.
whereas and user stories, right? Whereas the product owner is in charge of the features and the product, you know, where the product's going to go and what features they want to get, and that takes a lot of time and effort. So that usually roles split out as we grow the teams.
Mhm.
That's what I see as a difference.
Yeah, and I'm going to expound upon that because one of the things I've done, we talk about scaling agile. I told you I'm a safe fan at all. At T-Mobile, we did something, this is public knowledge, called R2D2, which is rapid realization dynamic delivery. It was our own framework, and I believe I had a lot of influence on that framework. The framework is really about backlogs and backlog management. So where Carl was talking about somebody who might want to, you know, be above or in some ways manage all the product owners as you scale, the way we talked about it is you would have a portfolio owner, and that portfolio owner would be responsible for a backlog. It's just the level of the backlog would be at a higher level. So the way it worked is that the product owner would be responsible for features and stories. The portfolio owner would be responsible for I forget what we used, initiatives and features, and then there'd be somebody above that, like a division head, and they would be responsible for initiatives and themes, right? And the way it scales is the money flows down to buy the capacity. And again, you're just making a financial decision, a very easy financial decision at the top. I only have 5 divisions. What am I going to give the 5 division heads in terms of my spend? If I'm spending $1 million, I could give them each 200,000, or I'd give one more because I want to, you know, emphasize the products in that area more, et cetera. But yeah, I appreciate it, Carl.
And one other thing, quite frankly, the difference, your topic, Larry, is so dear to my heart and it's so important because a lot of people, especially accidental project managers, think that if they dive into and start being a product manager, they would do more service to their organization. Thinking, as you said, system thinking and thinking large, project management is a bell curve. It's very simple. We have start and end, and there is by definition, Prince 2 says that, PMI, PMBOK says that, go look around and in everywhere. While product management doesn't die, we don't want to kill the product. We want to build more on that. That is why the difference, as Larry said, P&L, profit and loss, is engraved into making the product and moving forward. There's so much confusion in them. Then comes the product manager versus product owner, project manager versus Scrum and Agile, and now we have scaled Agile, and we have the D&D, and we have all sorts of certificate, and certificate won't do the job you guys will do. So when you join here in a meetup like today's, we get many takeaways. And thank you so much, Larry, for all the information. I'm actually rewriting my course as Agile Product Lifecycle Management. I'll be teaching at UCSC. Go to UCSC Extension and you'll see I'm adding artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence into how to initiate, ideate, and then start thinking about writing, about helping your team to build a product. Guess what? The team builds the product. Larry helps the team to build the product. We just come from the ideation of our customers' needs, markets, and everything, and we put together and get help from leadership like Larry to put team together to build the product. So we need a system thinking. It is so valuable what you said, and we'll share everything today's meeting and recording online. Thank you, Larry.
David, there is one question from Marianne. I think she wanted to ask Larry something. So I do want to get to that quickly before we wrap up.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marianne McGlynn. I'm a job hacker and from way back when, and then I worked for Visa and the contract ended. So I have a very particular question for you, Larry. Thank you so much. You've got a lot of depth and breadth to your knowledge, but what I'm really curious about is how you made that change from what you're currently doing to being a product manager. And this is your personal story about how you made that transition. Did you know someone in addition to all your skill sets? How are you making that? Because a lot of us with a collection of skills, such as myself, I'm looking to transfer into something slightly different. Perhaps product management or product ownership. And I played those roles and stood up in those roles at certain companies like Cisco, for example. So what is your story on that transition?
Sure. I'm happy to share it, actually. And Marianne, it's great to see you. And you know, thank you for your support of the job hackers over the years. I was laid off from T-Mobile and I had to find a job. So what did I do? Well, I thought what I had to say was valuable. I thought what I did was valuable, and I tried to market myself. And it was like the worst thing you could do. The market was terrible. So I wasted some time doing that. And my severance went away, and then my savings started going away. So I knew I had to get a job. So that's always front and center, right? Second thing is I've done the enterprise transformation work multiple times, right? I've tried to scale that mountain, whether I was successful or not, I don't know. Not as successful, certainly not as successful I wanted to be. I don't want that stress anymore, because the world of an agile coach is you spend 2 years one place and 1 year another place and blah, 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 because organizations say they want to change, they really don't want to change. So you become a thorn in their side when you try to change them, and they get rid of you. Simple as that. So I didn't want that. My wife didn't want it. She's really important in my life. She didn't want me changing jobs every year or two. And the other thing that was in my mind is, okay, well, I've done this. I don't mind doing something different. I don't mind doing something that is not as big, if you want to use that word. I'm fine with scaling down at this point because I'm looking at retirement soon. And I want to just, you know, take it a little bit more easy in my job. And it's the product manager job is going to be a heck of a lot easier, I think, than what I was trying to do in my previous life. So that's why the job, because everybody asks me, why are you taking this job? Because you helped run $1 billion, transformation, whatever. That's one of those are the reasons why I said, I'm happy to take this job. How I got it was the way that everybody's probably going to get a job from now into the future, because anything on LinkedIn, you get 1,000 resumes within 2 minutes, and they're all crap for the most part. No offense. Yours isn't probably, but you're
Right.
you're stuck with 1,000 people whose resume is crap. So they have a hard time finding people. So on the business side, they're saying we can't find people because we get 1,000 resumes, and on your side, you're saying I can't get a job because People were sending out 1,000 resumes. So that model won't work anymore. It didn't work very well. It worked kind of for a while, right? But now it doesn't, because with AI and things, it's just too easy to do that. The way we're going to do it is the way it was when I was growing up. It's who you know. It's the networking thing. So for those of you who know my history, I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for 25 years. And I didn't plan on, in fact, my last job in Scottsdale was as a contractor for American Express. So there's kind of a symmetry to it. But I didn't plan on coming up to the Bay Area. But somebody from Apple called and says, "Do you want to work at Apple?" I'd be crazy if I wouldn't. And so I came up to the Bay Area, and like many, I fell in love with it. And it took me 2.5 years to convince my wife to move up. So I flew back and forth for 2.5 years until she decided to move up. And then we moved the whole family, everyone up here. And I love it here. So anyway, there is a point to this. I met at Apple my current boss, and I was his agile coach. And I also was a product owner, actually, agile coach and product owner, because what they were doing, and I think I can talk about this because I don't think it's classified or anything, is Apple has an internal defect tracking called Radar. So if anybody's worked for Apple, you're probably familiar with Radar. What they wanted to do at the time is they wanted to make it more agile. So they brought me in to be the product owner for that, and also the agile coach for that. And I think he respected my work. I knew he was going to American Express, which I thought was kind of odd, going from Apple to American Express. And he posted on LinkedIn this position. And I sent him a note. I said, "Look, I'd love to work with you. Do you think I could do it?" He says, "Oh yeah, you could. I mean, you could do it in your sleep." So I went through the interview process. What was interesting about this, for those of you who care about the personal story, I went through the whole interview process and thought I was going to be picked for this job. What actually happened is somebody internally applied for it. So they get first dibs. So they actually hired that person for the job I interviewed for. But fortunately, he was able to get funding to backfill. And the other great thing about it was the original job was stationed in Phoenix, which a lot of IT for American Express. So I would have had to fly back and forth again. So I'd be doing it in reverse from what I used to do. The second job, when he opened it, he put Palo Alto, because we have a small office in Palo Alto. So now I don't have to fly every weekend. So it worked out really well that I didn't get the first job. It was kind of scary because we didn't know if he was going to get a backfill for the second job, but he did. And I couldn't be happier working, with him, and just, trying with the time I have left in the job force to help people. And he knows that I bring more to the table, and he allows me to do things like this, and he allows me to talk about agile from time to time, as long as I don't drop the ball on my primary duty, which is to make identity a great product, which is kind of odd if you think about it, but most people don't think about identity. That's why it's odd. Okay, I should probably get back. If anybody got a quick question, I'd be happy, but if not, I'm going to get going.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending the event, and we hope that you all enjoyed it and had a great time listening to it. Thank you, Larry, for the great presentation.
Thank you, Larry.
everyone.
And
We hope to see you all in our next meetup.
keep
Bye-bye.
that beautiful smile.
Bye, Larry.
Keep that beautiful
Bye, Larry.
smile,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.